And good afternoon, everyone. This is a friendly reminder that we are now live. Good afternoon, Danielle. Would you like to do a mic check?
Yes. Hello. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for checking in.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Oh, Marcia has not checked in yet. Good afternoon, Marcia. Would you like to do a mic check?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Vanessa. Can we do a mic check, please?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
all set. Hi, Larry. Can we do a mic check, please?
Hello, good afternoon. Working?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Mary Ann, can we do a mic check with you, please?
Yes, is it working?
It is. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Bob. Can we do a mic check, please?
Good afternoon, Dave.
Hello. How are you?
Thanks.
Hi, Carla. Can we do a mic check, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Wonderful.
Hi, Paul. Can we do a mic check, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Hi, Rob. Can we do a mic check?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, Michelle. Can we do a mic check, please?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Kim, can we do a mic check, please?
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you. Hi, Chief Garnett. Can we do a mic check, please?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to do a sound check with staff.
We can hear you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if I can hear you all.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Dave, can I hear you again?
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfectly, thank you.
Great, thank you. We are ready whenever you are.
Thank you very much. We're going to call our Children, Seniors, Families Committee meeting to order for May 26th. I'm going to ask for the staff to call the roll.
Good afternoon, Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
I'm here.
and Chairperson Chavez.
Here, thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, Susan and all of our friends who are here today, I wanted to start out with a moment of silence to just honor and recognize the that this has been a painful week for so many families in Texas, but across this country. And I know Supervisor Ellenberg and I this morning were at the one of the memorials for the VTA workers who were slaughtered a year ago today. And Supervisor Ellenberg, I thought you were poignant and elegant in your comments. And while we mourn, and we do, for the 19 children and 2 teachers who died at Robb Elementary School, and we mourn for the anniversary of our colleagues, I know there are no words to capture the depths of despair and frankly anger, and what I hope turns into action. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to read the names of the victims whose names have been released. But before I do that, I wanted to see Supervisor Ellenberg if there are any thoughts or comments that you wanted to share. Or if you'd like me to go ahead and read their names and give you a minute.
Why don't you do that first? Thanks.
Thank you. Irma Garcia, Amerhi Joe Garza, Ameri Joe Garza, Eva Mirales, Javier Lopez, Uzziah Garcia, Jose Flores Jr., Lexi Rubio, Tess Maria Mata, Navea Alyssa Bravo, Eliana Ellie Garcia, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Eliana Cruz Torres, Jacqueline Jalen Sazeres, Alithia Ramirez, McKenna Lee Elrod, Jayla Nicole Silgiro, JC Carmelo Luvanos, Rogelio Torres, and one other child whose name I don't know. The names of the VTA victims: Abdi Aljaman Madan, Adrian Baeza, Alex Fritsch, Jose Hernandez III, Lars Lane, Paul Mejia, Tapji Dijip Singh, Timothy Romo, and Michael Rudimetkin, and Henry Gonzalez, who died later. Perhaps we'll just take a moment of silence. Thank you all. So, Supervisor Ellenberg, should I just move to the agenda?
I'll take a minute as well. I was really undone this morning by the whole ceremony, but particularly by the anguished mom, lamenting and truly wailing over the death of her 35-year-old son a year ago. And what struck me so deeply is that our children are our children, whether they are 6 or 28 or 35, or probably much older than that. And what I felt this morning in the midst of the pain was also so much rage. I don't have the energy to repeat what I said this morning, but I think that our country is in a very dark place, and I don't see the willingness, the political will to fix this at the federal level. And I'm so proud of everything we're doing here in Santa Clara County, not only to try to curb gun violence, but to actually provide care and resources for every individual, including every child that needs us. So I want to be hopeful, but it is just hard right now. But there's nowhere I'd rather be than right here doing the work and being as useful as we can.
Exactly. Thank you, Susan. Well said, and well said today. Very, very powerful. With that, we're going to move to public comment, and this is an opportunity to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of this committee. I see no hands raised. I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to come back to the board and move to our regular agenda. And the first item is our consent items. And what I'd like to do is recommend, we already have on consent, for those who are listening, 16, which is our remote meeting schedules due to the state of emergency. 17, our Senior Care Commission state legislative recommendations. Item 18, the annual commission work plans. And then our adjournment, we'll not put that on consent. And then what I'd like to recommend, Supervisor Ellenberg, is item 4. And this is related to an assembly bill that's no longer moving forward. Item 6, the timely medical and dental exams report. Item 7, the adult protective services annual report. And item 9, the VASC report, each of them given with some comments. I don't know if that's comfortable for you, if there's any of those you'd like to keep off.
Taking a quick look, I had comments on 6 and 7, which I think can be made on consent. Let me just take a quick look at 9, and nothing on 9. So 6 and 7, I would like to make some brief comments and give direction on consent.
Great. With that, why don't I let you start, Supervisor, and then I'll go to the other. I'll make my comments after you. Do you want me to start?
No, got it. So on item 6, which is the medical and dental exams, at the report that we got in February, there was some discussion about appointment availability after school hours late in the day. And I believe that the direction was for DFCS, Healthier Kids, and BMC to coordinate on any medical or dental exam scheduling barriers and then report back to CFSC. I did see that that clinic hours are reported in the ledge file and that a survey is underway on dental appointment barriers. What I'd be interested to know, and this can come back to us off agenda if we're going to keep this on consent, is a little bit more feedback from staff on the issues here, specifically whether it would make sense for Spark to offer evening clinic hours 1 or 2 days a week to support working families and teens with work or other after school commitments. I feel like this is a real need on both the medical and dental side that perhaps could be accommodated by shifting clinic hours later so that they start later in the day. So what I'd like to hear back is what the plan is for the appointment schedule for Spark and PDSC services once the new co-located clinics are open as a part of the Youth Center for, what is it now? The Youth Center for Evaluation and Advocacy.
Great.
I'm happy for that to come back to us off agenda, if that's all right.
Yeah. Staff, does that sound doable? Or would you rather respond? Because we can pull it off consent if that's better.
Hi, Supervisors. Daniel Little with Department of Family and Children Services. I think we can provide that in an off agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. And on item 7,
Can I stop you just on 6 for a moment?
Sure, please.
Yeah, just because you sparked something for me when you mentioned the Spark Clinic. If I could just add that we're also adding dental services to new clinics as well, including the VASC, and we should take a look at that one as well, just because it's so new and it's in a part of the community that there's high need. So Supervisor Ellenberg, thank you for raising that. I will also say that I just want to thank the staff and acknowledge the incredibly hard work that you've done to get us to where we are today, where we were a few years ago. I didn't think today would ever come that we could actually talk about how to refine our work instead of just getting it done. So I did want to say thank you to the staff. Supervisor Ellenberg, just item 7.
Item 7 is the annual Adult Protective Services report. And with the APS staffing levels have reduced during the pandemic, I just wanted to call out my agreement with the report statement that, this is a quote from the report, the APS program maintains professional and highly motivated staff who are dedicated to finding solutions for elders and dependent adults while maintaining dignity, improving quality of life, and respecting the right to self-determination. So thank you for that work. On page 9 of the report, there are three elements of a strategic plan to assist APS intake, and reports is called out. And given that the older adults age is expected to be lowered from 65 to 60, and I have some feelings about that, and that needs could be further exacerbated by change in economic conditions, I'd like to request that either the report for fiscal year 2022 or a status report on the impact of AB 135 and Home Safe program in Santa Clara County be presented either in November or December to this committee.
That would be great. Thank you. Valerie, does that work?
Yeah, we can make that work. AB 135 went into effect in January, even though it was passed last as part of the budget in last June. So as the state sometimes does, they pass the law before we got the allocation and before we're even able. So thank you for giving us time to put it all together. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's a good resolution. Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. On item 9, this was a report that I asked the staff to come back to be responsive, and this report's not responsive in a few areas. One is I'd asked for a staffing and operations model along with the how we were going to work with CBOs and how we were going to address senior nutrition post-COVID. And this is the hottest senior nutrition program we have in the county. So rather than having this come back in August, because I worry about the time getting away from us, and I have frankly been getting some concerns about the operations of the VASC in general, that I would like to have this come back in June with those questions answered. Is that all right with, I think in particular, hi, Marianne, I wanted to ask Key as this, I don't know if he's here, but that would be the direction I'd want to give. Marianne, did you have feedback to that direction?
Yes, we'll do our best to get you clearer responses.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it. I know there's a lot going on, but I do want to make sure we have that information. My reason for wanting it this month is I wanted to make sure if we needed to talk about this during budget, we could. So I'll also be raising this during the budget hearings as well.
Thanks, much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. All right, I see no other professional staff's hands raised. Before we take a vote on the consent calendar, we will go to public comment for consent.
One moment, please, while we get the timer up.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kathleen King. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, this is Kathleen King from Healthier Kids Foundation. And with the pandemic, I don't think we've done enough expressing the gratitude we have for certain organizations. And I just wanted to pass on how nice it is to work with social services and all the different programs within social services. They've been just a wonderful partner, always easy to work with. And even when I get to find defensive or whiny, they are always very professional. So I wanted to pass it on when I wasn't working on a contract or an RFP. I needed to do it at a time where none of that was going on. So just want to thank you for hiring such a wonderful group. I'll give you the minute back.
Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks for all the amazing work.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. And I just want to appreciate Kathleen as she's appreciating others for the health of her kids. So with that, we'll take a vote.
Madam Chair, we don't have a motion or a second on this item yet.
Oh,
So I'm happy to move approval of the consent calendar with the added items and direction as discussed.
and I'm happy to second it. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Truly, thank you. All right, we're going to go to item 5, and this is the Office of Children and Families Policy Report.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Chavez and Vice Chair Ellenberg. This report provides an update related to the staffing for the Office of Children and Families Policy, as well as a few progress notes relative to 2 work plans that were presented last month. One that supports the expansion of wellness centers, and the other is a program that supports children who have lost a primary caregiver to COVID. I know the supervisors also asked for a work plan related to the Quality Matters initiatives with First 5, and we are actually working on those currently and should have those for you at the June CFCFC meeting. And of course, Supervisor Chavez, you asked for a updated matrix relative to the early learning workforce investments countywide, and we are working with the County Office of Ed for that. Most likely, we'll come back to you in August or September, pending their availability. So we'll work that out with them, but that should circle back, hopefully August, September at the latest. I would like to point to an error in the ledge file. The start date for the Chief Children's Officer is actually not on Monday, but rather Tuesday, May 31st, not on the holiday. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Susan, do you have a question?
Some comments mostly. Thank you very much, Dr. Luna. I'm really glad to see the progress on supports for children who have lost caregivers, and that outreach is going to occur in the coming weeks before school wraps up for the year. Once the materials and the phone line are available, I'd like to see those posted. Oh, my light went off. I'd like to see those posted to the county's COVID recovery website, where other county programs and resources are posted for residents and businesses. I also just want to reinforce my direction that at the budget workshop that the contract with the County Office of Ed for supports associated with the wellness centers to help them prepare for future expansion be included in the June revised budget, please. Both of those work for you, Dr. Luna?
Thank you. Will do. Yes,
Great.
I'll follow up.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
And Supervisor Ellenberg, I'm going to raise an issue. I have had a conversation to talk, an opportunity to speak with Dr. Dewan about this, but I just wanted to raise this with you, which is that I remain very interested in a robust definition of the wellness centers and what outcomes that we want to have from them. And just to say, Dr. Luna, and I apologize, I can't remember, Supervisor Ellenberg, if I spoke to you or Dr. Dewan about this. If I said this at a public meeting or if this was my conversation with Dr. Dewan, and that is that I think that the service model is going to be critical to understand whether or not it will have the opportunity to be able to at some point be funded by insurance. And and I think the sustainability question is really, really critical. Like one of the things the only thing that would be worse than not providing the service is removing the service because we can't fund it. So that's kind of issue number one. But issue number two is really divining or just better understanding what we consider the basic benchmarks for a wellness center to be, and then how do we ascertain their effectiveness? And I do know I shared this at a previous meeting that there seems to be some concern and confusion depending on the school you're in as to even the purpose of them. So for me, any funding should be aligned with answering those questions. And that said, I also recognize that some of this is a pilot, and that's okay. But we're expanding this rapidly without the fixtures connected to them. At least that's the way it appears to me. And so what I'd like to do is make sure that all of that is embedded in the investments. I'm excited about the opportunity, and I'm particularly excited about it as we're working on other issues, including, we've been trying to working with public health, even addressing things like drug use, like fentanyl and other things that young people are accessing. So I absolutely see the need for these. I just want them to be a little more defined.
I could not agree with you more. And if I could speak for Dr. Luna, because we've talked about exactly this, we are absolutely on the same page. That's one of the reasons why we didn't recommend a full funding right up front of the entire requested amount, but to give time to build out metrics and some consistent standards and sustainability, and truly everything you said, we're fully aligned on that.
Excellent. That's really great, because I am really excited about it. So good. I don't think there's any other action. This was just a report out, and we're not, I think since we've already talked about the expectations, I don't think we need to take a vote on that. I think it's just a report out.
We don't need a vote on the adding this information to the county COVID recovery website or budget piece.
Would you like us to do that, Dr. Luna?
If you'd like, I'm going to follow up regardless. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a really good idea.
I'm always happy to formalize if that's all right. So I would make that motion to include the direction already.
Excellent. There's a motion with a second, and I'll go to the public for public comment.
One moment, please. Next speaker is Kathleen King. Kathleen, you have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
So this is Kathleen King from Healthier Kids again, and we appreciate the looking at children who have lost a caregiver, and we are trying to track the children we work with to see who would fit in that category. But we had some people decide they wanted to donate for one of the little boys that we helped and his brother. And so we're going to start college savings programs for him. We raised about $700 for him. And I like the idea of the college saving because I don't think it will affect the family's Social Security payments. So I just wanted to make that suggestion. Thanks.
That concludes our request to speak.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Kathleen. All right. So we have a motion and a second. We'll ask for a roll call vote.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Chairperson Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, thank you, Dr. Luna. With that, we're going to move on to item 8, and this is the Universal Development Screening Initiative. Michelle Descailles is going to report out on this.
Thank you, Supervisors Ellenberg and Chairperson Chavez, for the ongoing leadership in this important work, and Michelle Descailles, the Office of System Integration and Transformation. On behalf of the cross-departmental team and the partnerships with First 5 and UCSF, we've submitted the report on our progress to the Universal Screening Initiative. We have no formal presentation today, but in the report, we're happy to note that we remain on track for the go live at Duly, and we are formalizing the plan, space, and recruitment for the first county clinic to go live with this initiative. Ongoing through partnership with our connections in the community, we've reviewed a phased approach and begun outreach and engagement with the community partners to find the additional community clinics to join the cohort. And we should have additional information regarding the go live at Tully and the additional requests in the report coming in to the full board in October. We're available for questions at this time.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thanks. Michelle, could you say a little bit more about what the next steps are for the county in helping to finalize that cohort of county and community clinics that will participate in the pilot?
Yeah, so from my understanding of my communication with UCSF and with First Five, they have done some preliminary work with Gardner and some other of the outreach to try and engage with the clinic sites. There has been some no takers as of yet, so we're really looking at what are the startup costs for this and how do we help look at the funding and decide what the cohort size is and how to support that. So we're partnering together with that.
Okay, and do we have, in the March report and at the budget workshops, I directed that the county set aside funding to pay for implementation expenses for community clinics that might otherwise face barriers to joining the pilot cohort. Have resources been identified for that support?
The county executive is looking at that as we speak through the comprehensive report. Mm-hmm.
Could you get an answer to the board before we come back to budget hearings to identify where that's going to come from, please? Sure. Okay. Thank you. And also in the next quarterly report, I'd like to receive a presentation on the timeline for the overall pilot implementation, noting key activities for the Tully Clinic, when additional clinics, county clinics might be phased in, and timing for the onboarding of any community clinics that are going to participate.
Excellent. Will do.
Thank you. That would be my motion.
Great. Thank you. Michelle, I appreciate that that you're moving the budget question to the right place. I think that's the right thing to do. I just want to reinforce that getting an off agenda before budget is going to be very critical. That I really am supporting Supervisor Ellenberg's seeking that out. The question that I have is that part of this report very lightly touches on the billing issues relative to this, and I thought it was a really good point that we wanted to be sustainable. And one thing that I would request is if we could have a report out at Children's Family at this committee to have a discussion about what we fund, how insurance is working when we have this overlap between the medical side and the mental health side, because I understand that's kind of where the challenge is. I'd really like to more deeply understand that question. And there are two issues there. One is what therefore, under what circumstances are we describing something as a medical service, and what are the funding sources there versus a behavioral health service that isn't, for whatever reason, considered medical in the medical world, even though we're all into whole person care. I find it very challenging to determine how we're going to be able to grow these really important programs absent understanding that. And the other reason I want to understand that is if that's not going to be fully funded, we don't think it'd be fully funded for 3 years or 4 years. I just want to know, and I think it's a really important use of general fund to fund those services. I would just want to know over what period, for how long, and how we're tracking that so that we can better make the case about both what our investment is, but why. To me, this goes in the category of such deep and meaningful prevention that as the board grapples with the budget during challenging times, I find that many of our preventative activities get cut and our end don't. And I think we have to be able to make the case that these are the cost-effective changes we need to make so that 10, 20, 30 years from now, we're not having a discussion about why we can't fund the exact discussion we're having right now about the mental health resources that we're looking at. So if that could come at the next quarter with whoever the smartest person is who speaks people, because every time I hear people talk about insurance, I go crazy, but I want to better understand that.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, for that question and that insight. And we are also hoping to learn through the technical assistance support that's being provided in this program to really better understand how to generate that revenue and kind of make this a sustainable program, because we too believe that this is important work that needs to continue, and that that we can really help with that preventative nature and early identification and support for families and kids in our community. So,
and Michelle, I think it would also help us understand the question that Supervisor Ellenberg raised about who the partners are at the table. I thought her point about funding is right, and then the question would become for us: are there certain types of nonprofits that have capacity to do billing that other nonprofits don't? And just as an example, that's part of the reason I was asking the insurance question, and under what bucket different activities happen, and is it different even depending on if you're in a federally qualified health center? I know that has one difference, but being in a medical environment versus a purely behavioral health environment. Again, I don't know the answer to those questions, but I'd be really curious to understand them.
Yes, and I hope that we will get some technical assistance to help us better answer that in a layperson's term and in a sustainable model moving forward as well. Because those are areas that do come under change as we move through the program.
Another additional question that I have is the patient focus here 0 to 3?
Our initial outreach will be 0 to 3.
So the work that is being done by the, I always get the name wrong, but by our assessment center that's being developed over at Cwscms. One thing that I also would love to see is when this comes back, just to better see the connection of those programs. Because I think back to the point that Supervisor Ellenberg's raising about it's a pilot, but then as we determine its effectiveness, how does that grow into these kind of multiple layers? And part of the reason I'm asking the question here is that one of with the other center, one of the things I'm really, and I still remain concerned about, we have it being developed in a building that can't hold all the partners. And I don't understand that at all, but I'm sure someone is going to help me understand that soon. But for this, I think one of the, we have a heavy emphasis on how you work with the schools. The question I have about this one is the heavy emphasis I hope we're having with childcare providers and preschool providers, right? And so I do want to make sure that as the pilot proceeds, that education connection is really built so solid into our medical work that it's just you don't, that we really are treating the whole child, and starting with their childcare providers or their preschool providers, because I can't think of a better use of that information partnership and resource than to make sure that's a big part of the body of work, because we need to just get good at it at all levels. So, okay. All right, Supervisor Ellenberg, any concerns about that? I know this is a pilot near and dear to your heart. Nope, okay. So with that, I'll see if there are any public comments. I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to close the public comment. I'm going to ask for a motion to receive the report with the additional requested information that includes off agenda prior to budget and the budget impacts, and then to schedule at the next quarterly report out a deeper discussion around the sustainability of the model. Supervisor Ellenberg's request about making sure we understand the partners and partnerships, and then my request to understand how this fits in with our other work, developmental work we're doing. And then finally, what's the connection to the child care providers and the preschool, whatever that may be for that child. All right. Thank you, Michelle. You've got all that? Okay, so we have a motion from Supervisor Ellenberg. Yes, on all that. And a second from me. And we'll turn to Dave.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg,
Yes.
and Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We're now going to move to item 10. I think I'm right about that, Dave, am I?
That is correct. Item number 10 is next.
Great. And item 10, this is to receive a report from the Office of Supportive Housing and Social Services relating to the engagement and outreach efforts in the development and operations of the hub. I know we received something this morning. Let me just see. Staff, do you want to present?
Good afternoon, Chairperson Chavez and Vice Chair Ellenberg, Consuelo Hernandez with the Office of Supportive Housing. We do have a presentation for you to provide an update of the community engagement strategy. We're joined this afternoon by our colleagues in the Social Services Agency, our development partner, Allied Housing, and the project architect, HKIT. We'd be happy to start off with the presentation if the chairperson agrees.
Thank you. That would be great.
And I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes, it's perfect. Thanks, Consuelo.
Thank you. And we wanted to start just with a bit of a background in terms of the engagement that we have completed thus far. We started the community outreach in August 2021, and this included 3 large community-wide meetings that really focused on the overall project and the building massing for the hub and the housing component. So think of this as very traditional community meetings. They were all Zoom-based. We used interactive tools to engage with folks, showed them pictures, asked them about priorities, looked at height. And during the same time, in a separate exercise, we also had initial focus groups with current hub users, staff and service providers. We had 43 participants that attended the August 2021 focus group meeting, and it was specifically for current hub users. And I will just pause to say that this summary does not include any of the great work that was prepared back in 2019 or that was conducted in 2019 that basically informed the strategy around the hub. This is all work that started when we selected our development partner and all of the work that has happened since then. Then when we start to think about the engagement planning for the hub community, we started in March and April of this year. We held 2 meetings. One of the piece of information or feedback that we received was that we were basically not engaging with the youth using language that was, they didn't necessarily understand, and that we were pretty much going too fast. Not providing sufficient level of information on the housing component, which if we use the same approach, we were basically going to get the same level of feedback on the engagement around the hub. So we had a very, very informal conversation with 3 specific youth leaders to ask them, and we do this a lot in the service side, to ask them, what is the best way to engage? We didn't talk specifically about the project, but it was more, Supervisor Chavez, in a previous meeting, you said it's the pizza parties, it's the more informal discussions based on specific questions that we want the youth to give us feedback on. And through that and the feedback that we've gotten, we have prepared a joint engagement strategy with our social services agency colleagues, and we're prepared to share that with you today. The first exercise that we did together as a group was a stakeholder mapping. And the stakeholder mapping is not focused on the community the way we normally do it. This is really based on youth and young adults. What groups should we be talking to? What are the service levels? Again, this is based on the feedback that we received from the smaller group, but looking at the type of support that is needed and the gaps that they see in the way that we were outreaching, and mostly on the OSH side, because our colleagues in SSA also took some time to provide us with key stakeholders that should be engaged. So this slide here just shows you examples of the categories of the engagement, where we have the youth and young adults, service providers, but then also the role that academics, employment, juvenile justice system, and these other areas of service, how all of those conversations need to be integrated into the body of work that we're doing. And the idea is that those stakeholders would be invited in these conversations with us. And we've proposed this workshop series. This workshop number 1, OSH and SSA will basically be taking the lead in hosting and kicking off, honoring all the work that has done before, talking about rules of engagement, and really focused on listening and incorporating their feedback into the interior design of the hub. Workshops 2 to 4 will then be very much focused on large-scale design discussions around the new hub. And then we thought there would be some benefit to have a focused discussion about how we arrived at our recommendations on the housing. And I will go through each one and also invite some of the folks that have joined me today for the presentation. So as I mentioned, our first workshop, the Office of Supportive Housing and Social Services Agency will take the lead in providing a discussion to kick off the next phase. For workshop number 2, I am going to turn it over to Macy. Macy, would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Consuelo. Good afternoon, Supervisor Ellenberg and Supervisor Chavez. It's great to be here. My name is Macy Leung, and I'm a Senior Project Manager at Allied Housing, a bold emphasis. Allied Housing is looking forward to working with our architect and design team and the county in continuing the hub and youth engagement process. And we will be working with the youth as partners. Our project architect team, Paul from HEIT, who you'll be hearing from in minutes, will share an overview of the youth engagement approach to inform the hub's exterior and interior design for workshop number 2 and workshop number 3. Then finally, Paul and I will share an overview for workshop number 4, the art engagement meeting. With that, I'd like to turn over to Paul, my colleague from HEIT.
Thank you, Macy. Wanted to talk about our workshop number 2 that we have coming up. This is the first engagement that's a focused design engagement with the hub stakeholders. For this engagement, we're going to be focused 100% on the exterior of the building. Our last engagement with the hub youth was in 2021. So we're going to start with a brief overview of the progress of the combined exterior shell of the building. This is for both the housing and the hub portion of the building. We'll go through the design and identify the portions of the building that are for the hub and talk more about the outdoor amenities that are included in the program. And these amenities are informed by the feedback we received in our last engagement session. We're going to be focusing specifically on 2 of the outdoor areas that are for the hub. One is the child play area for the hub youth and children. And then there's a main space. You can see some images here of the main gathering space. And for the program and for planning purposes at this time, we've located some placeholder furnishings and some finishes and play equipment that's seen in these images. But the goal of the engagement session is to solicit feedback on these placeholder elements and present some more options and really customize these outdoor spaces so that they best suit the hub youth needs and preferences. That's workshop number 2. Coming up next, after that is going to be going inside the space. This is going to focus on the interior program, the interior floor plan, and really the look and the feel of the interior spaces. We'll start off, like we did in the last session, with an orientation and a review of the design as it's progressed. The actual program of the hub, layout of the rooms, the sizes of these rooms are really informed by staff. Our intent's not to have the youth manipulate or modify the actual layout and the size of the spaces, but we really want to focus on the youth preferences in terms of the character of these spaces, the look and the feel. And we're going to help the youth visualize, options and possibilities for this space and look at the specific activities and the uses of the different areas and program within the hub. Because again, we want to customize and really take this shell and make it personalized for the hub youth. So in the process of this workshop, we're going to use focused questions, program-specific questions, such as What type of art do you want to make in the makerspace? What types of snacks do you prefer in the snack bar? Questions like this are really designed to spur some thinking and feedback on the interior design of the space. And again, our goal is to customize and personalize the interior design to match their preferences. Following this discussion, in workshop number 3, HKIT architects, we will present progress on the interior design. We're going to include some interior renderings to give the youth a good sense of the scale and the layout of the inside of the hub. We'll put these renderings, present them in a way that's got minimal detail, again, as a placeholder that the youth can use to imagine colors and finishes and art that's appropriate. And our goal is really to get this feedback so we can breathe life into these interior spaces. So finally, workshop number 4 for the design engagement of the hub space. We're focusing on the art of the hub. In all of our discussions with the hub youth and staff to date, they've made it very, very clear that the art is a very important part of the hub culture and the hub programming. So to initiate this discussion, we're going to start by looking at the building exterior, and we're going to look at possible locations for murals, other art elements that could be included in the interior. And we're going to be working with an art consultant. We've identified a community-based art consultant with a specialty in working with youth organizations and brainstorming, so soliciting ideas from the youth. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Macy. Do you want to add any more to this art?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. So we were thinking the process of creating the art for the hubs outside and inside is something we can see that you can fully also participate in addition to the design and development of the project. So in addition to soliciting just feedback from the youth engagement meeting, it would be great if youth can actually provide submission of the art and display their art as part of signage, display for each room, and also just to participate in creating the art itself. So we would like to youth to feel that not only do they take part in the art creating process, but they actually see the art being displayed inside and outside the home. So with that, I will turn it to Consuelo.
Thank you, Macy. And then we would wrap up our engagement with a discussion around housing. And part of this update includes sharing with the youth and young adults the target population and affordability levels, because there are various categories of youth that we have identified that would occupy a portion of the building, with the balance being available for families that are not necessarily connected with DFCS or who are youth and are or homeless. And through that, we will also talk about the relationship between an integration of the residential amenities that are specific to the hub versus those that are connected to the hub housing. Because one of the comments that we did receive is, making sure that there's some integration there. We'll open the forum for Q&A, but we also want to give the youth and young adults insight into the housing development pipeline that we have, including the Gallup and Mesa site that is opening later this year, which includes 24 units for homeless TAY, and our project in Mountain View, which is the conversion of the Crestview Hotel that includes a set aside for TAY, and really wanting to get some input from them on our bigger housing strategy, not just with the housing that we're building at the hub. And the last component that we wanted to share with you is that in addition to the workshops that we mentioned, we are proposing ongoing engagement with the youth and young adults to keep them up to date on all of the work and progress that we're doing. And to achieve that, the Office of Supportive Housing and the Social Services Agency team is proposing bi-monthly meetings. They would be regular progress updates, information sharing, but also listening and making sure that we're all still on the same track and achieving the same goals. And then just leave it open for a Q&A so that folks can ask questions that they might have, or if we're not being clear, that they have the forum and opportunity to ask us questions. That does conclude our presentation. We would love to receive feedback from Chairperson Chavez, Vice Chair Ellenberg, in what you've seen today, any recommendations or adjustments that you see are needed before we actually launch this effort.
Thank you. I'm going to see if there's public comment on this item. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and come back to the board. To make a couple of observations. So, one of the overall concerns that I have, and Consuelo, this isn't really doesn't belong necessarily to you, but probably you with a combination of our social services agency as well. And so Dan and Robert, I'm going to just make these comments also recognizing that, our foster youth programming, I know is largely under Dan, Robert as well, or Bob. So my biggest concern is that the project overall doesn't have a client-centered feel to me. And the reason for that is that getting the outreach, Damien, thank you, getting the outreach plan now that's this robust and detailed, when this is something that has been requested now for some time, concerns me because it feels like a good change in the right direction, but a change nonetheless. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when the hub very first came to be rebuilt, the whole intent of it really was to build a place for our foster youth to get supports and services in a safe environment. And the housing came after, which I'm glad it did. I wanted it. And it's, honestly, it's slowed us down dramatically, but so be it. That's what we need. We need housing in our community, and we need housing for these young people. So my concern is, so I'm going to make some recommendations that I think may address some of this. First, that the Hub Youth Leadership Council be added to the list of stakeholders as a formal partner. And that there be a designated point person for the Hub Youth and other stakeholders relative to the project, that there is somebody that the young people can call with feedback and input, and frankly, that my office, not just my office, Supervisor Ellenberg's office, and also the office of Deb Davis, know who that is, Councilmember Davis. I appreciate the engagement plan timeline, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. I think that's great that that's being done. And that the workshops, that the dates of the workshops be far enough in advance that the youth can attend. Some of them gave me feedback that they were asked the day of to participate in events or meetings. And, I think we just have to be more mindful of people's time. I want to make sure that Supervisor Ellenberg, myself, and Deb, Councilmember Davis's office are aware of them, so that they are able to send representatives, which I think is important for a bunch of different reasons. And that we make sure that we're doing workshops that are language and have the accessible approach. And this is what my overall biggest concern is, that when the first time I saw a floor plan of the hub, it was 100 years ago. So this was pre the housing. We had so much back of house in the facility that the part that the youngsters would be engaged with was relatively small. And I will just say, Supervisor Ellenberg, I know you've been over to the VASC and seen the 3 different floors at the VASC. The original design of the VASC had the 3rd floor for staff, with a possible meeting room for the community. And then the meeting room got removed too. And now when you go there, half of that floor has got office space but the rest of it is for the community, including that it had security only on that floor. I mean, I could just go on about this, but my point is that this has to be client-centered design. And I do not think we're going in that direction yet. I would love to be wrong about that, but it's very hard for us to think about the design of the user, not simply being the staff people that work there. And I've seen that in a number of buildings. I think we're course correcting them, but with the social services agency, that's been something now I've seen at least twice. And I want to make sure, Damien, that gets remedied like right now. That, for me, what I'm going to want to see when the reports come back is what are the young people telling us? For the VASC, we did years of design of conversation, and it was very iterative. But that the design of that and what programs are in there is completely based on what the community told us and what we knew we had demand on. So I really want to make sure that when this comes back to us, that I understand how the voices of the clients are being included. Any thoughts or concerns about what I've just said?
No, Supervisor Chavez, that's pretty clear in regards to next steps.
Thank you. Susan, did you want to dive in on that point?
Yeah, just to really emphasize the distinction between asking youth for their opinions on color or furnishings, as opposed to the really fundamental design and use of the space. So I do want to support that. I had another question, but if you've got more, Supervisor Chavez, I can wait.
Thank you. I just had 3 more points, but I think that's right. What's the use? What do they most need? Childcare, like what is it that they're telling us they need? A place for them to study? What is it? And I want to see what they said. Like, I'm interested in what they are telling us. And so with the new hub, will the new hub be for 14 to 24 years old, both current and former foster youth, or will it serve children who are younger?
Well, the design is for any TAY youth is able to use the hub. The predominant population that uses the hub at this particular juncture is usually the 17 to 21 year olds, but anyone from those age ranges that you've spoken to, Supervisor Chavez, can access the hub.
Yeah, got it. So it won't be children. It'll be high school and a high school college age and a little above that, but not younger than 14.
Correct, because there's other resources that we have with our independent living program that they can access.
Yeah, and it's not, I just wanted to make sure I understood it as I was looking at the design. And in particular, and again, I would be interested in the young people telling us this, but feedback that I've gotten directly has been around parenting for foster youth, a big interest in parenting, a big interest in supervised childcare. And so what that's made me wonder is whether or not we would have a supervised childcare or licensed childcare or even lactation rooms there. So again, I don't have an opinion about that. I really want to know what our TAY youth are telling us. But those are the kinds of things. Well, I always have an opinion about childcare. That's not true. But those are the kinds of things that I'm really interested in hearing from them. And then just to make sure that I know we've had conversations about Consuelo. I've talked to you a little bit about how the housing will have how that will be differentiated from the hub, and where it might connect. But I think exploring that with the young people is something I'm very interested in their take on it. And also I know we have lived experiences, especially as we're housing new people. I think it would be really important to hear from people who are already housed that may be part of that lived experience, that can talk a little bit about what they recommend the connection to be. And part of it is that we want to be safe because we have children of such broad ages together, so I want to be thinking about that, but also access. And also I know that the facility is not going to be all for transitional aged youth in terms of housing. And so how does that all work? I know you've all been giving some thought to that, because I've heard, Natalie, I think I've heard you talk about that in the past. So that's helpful. I just want to make sure that we ask the young people about it. Supervisor Ellenberg, you know how I feel about this project. I could go on and on. So I'm going to just turn it over to you right now.
Thank you so much. And I love your passion for this, and it gives me just tremendous confidence in how it will turn out. The other engagement piece that I wanted to ask about, though, is really our more typical neighborhood engagement, because of course there are nearby residents, neighbors, businesses, the folks that are going to want to know about this development just as they want to know about any other new structures that we bring into community. So can somebody talk a little bit about how and when we're engaging residential and commercial neighbors to the site?
Sure, Supervisor Ellenberg, I can get us started. We, in that space, this is the bulk of our experience in working with our development partner is the more traditional engagement with the neighboring properties, the businesses, specifically at this site, because it's such an interesting intersection where you have a nonprofit office, you have some retail across the street. I think the gym is still open, so we've connected and have a stakeholders list for all of the neighbors and have followed a lot of cards. We expanded our radius, and that engagement, the first phase of that has happened. And our proposal in terms of next steps really are in providing the public with updates. At this point, we let them know when we submitted our entitlement application, and then we'll be planning on probably looking at quarterly updates where we would send out an email notification once there's an update to share. And then, like we've been doing with our other developments, is if there's a financing update, if there's any change that is different than what we communicated at our last meeting, that before that change is made, that we bring the community back together for a second session. And then prior to any construction, that we hold another community meeting and give them an update. We've been doing that pre-construction meeting more regularly now with all of our developments. And it's been really helpful talking about noise, circulation. So basically taking all of those lessons learned from our other body of work and making sure that this project is doing that.
I appreciate hearing that. And anytime you send out information to the neighbors, I'd like to get that also, please, so that I can amplify it since it's in my district to make sure that people are actually seeing it. I want to be able to do kind of a litmus check on what we say we're sending out, and are people actually hearing and receiving the information? And if not, do we need some other way of pushing information out? And do we always include in that information a live phone number in person to call with questions?
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. Yes, and we also have a project website that Allied is hosting, and in the next day or two, we will also have that on our Office of Supportive Housing County website. That will have an update, not just on the hub, but on all of our other county-led developments, just to give the public, for those that are engaging for the first time, they will almost always look to the county first. And this way they have a landing page that will give them more information and contact information for us and our development partner that we've selected for any one of the specific properties that we're leading in the development phase. And we will double check the stakeholder list, Supervisor Ellenberg. I believe David Fernandez from your office is currently on that list.
Okay.
And Supervisor Chavez, I do think we may need to double check. Amy might still be on that, but not sure if we have added Betty. So we will double check that list to make sure that your offices are being notified.
Great. Thank you so much.
Oh, I apologize, Supervisor. Consuelo, Councilmember Davis's office is also on it. One recommendation I would make is that even if if our offices are getting informed, I would just add each of the each of the principals to it too, so we see it and we know that it's happening, because sometimes our staff is so efficient we don't know. And I did have a brief conversation with Councilmember Davis, and she told me two things. One, that most of the feedback she'd gotten from her district was very positive, but she felt like she hadn't heard what was happening for a while. And again, that may be because she's busy with other things, but if you just put us on the list as well would be ideal, because a little redundancy is probably helpful.
Appreciate that too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then one other thing I was just thinking about is that I know we have a number of young people that are former foster youth that are part of our Intern and Earn program. And Damien, it would be helpful to figure out a way to reach out to them, because I think one of the challenges for foster youth is that their lives are a little inconsistent, in terms of where they are and what they need. And so, I would just say that there are two groups that I would just add. One is, like I said, Intern and Earn. Some of the kids there are foster youth, and the program managers may know how to distinguish children who are part of our foster care program. And then the second thing that I would just add is that we have two nonprofits that have very close relationships with transitional age youth, in addition to the great group that you have here. And one is the Child Advocates. They have a CASA program where they have adults that are tied to the welfare of children that they have a mentorship relationship with, and an advocacy relationship with. And so I would work with Fred Ferrer's team at CASA, because that's a great way to get foster youth that are running into me and telling me they're concerned. Actually, I was telling Betty, I had 3 different young people approach me about this project, and which we can talk about offline, but they were very concerned about the status of it. But anyway, I think CASA would be a great place to go, the Child Advocates Organization. And then Intern and Earn, and there was one other, and then Pivotal. And that's another Betty can get you that info. To Damien, I don't know if you know them, but I think they've been doing scholarships and really focused on education with our foster youth. But again, great nonprofit partners that have really good relationships with foster youth that can be very engaging with them.
Yes, definitely, Supervisor Chavez. We actually have recently some meetings with Pivotal, and I've ran into CASA staff recently as well. So I'll follow up with them.
Pivotal. Thank you, Damien, for correcting me. I couldn't remember their new name. They changed names, so thank you. A while ago, actually. Okay. So I think we gave a lot of feedback there. Damien and Consuelo, Natalie, and Macy, do you all have that? Feel like you had any questions for you all? Okay.
No questions, Chairperson Chavez. This is great. This is the first time that our teams are working together on something so unique and so special. So we really do appreciate the feedback, and we are meeting more regularly, and we want to make sure we get it right.
I appreciate that. And one request that I would make is we do report backs. If Natalie and Macy can join us, and Damien and Consuelo, I think that cross-section is actually very helpful. And I see Paul over there as well. So I appreciate you all being here very much. So with that, we'll take a vote just to vote to receive the report with the direction given. And so if I could have Dave take that roll call for us.
My apologies, Madam Chair. Did we get a motion and a second on that?
My apologies to you, Dave. Never. No. Yes, we'll do it right now. And I'll make it with all the direction and feedback given to staff. Can I ask for a second, Supervisor? And I have a second from Supervisor Ellenberg. A roll call vote. Thanks, Dave.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Chairperson Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you.
So patient with us. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, I know. He's so great. I appreciate him. All right. Thanks all. We'll now move to item 11. And item 11 is to receive a report from Probation, Behavioral Health Services Department, and Department of Children and Family Services relating to the duly involved youth unit initiative that report out from 2014 to 2021.
Great. Good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez, Supervisor Ellenberg. It's nice to see you guys. Super excited about this report today. This is from 2014. So this is the report, Supervisor Chavez, that you have been asking for very patiently and sometimes not so patiently over the past several years. We finally got it done. So before we launch into the presentation, two things. On here today is Judge Michael Clark, who is the new presiding judge for the Juvenile Court, taking over for Judge Lucero, who is now the director of the Office of Youth Restoration. I missed a word. And so he's here for questions, and he does the duly involved calendar. Also, I wanted to, the bad news for us and the good news for Judge Lucero is this will be Dr. Child's last meeting, as she is going to be the research director for the Office of Youth and Community Restoration. So she's going out with a bang because this is a phenomenal report. So those are my announcements. Presenting today are Alex Villa, who's a probation division manager, Rachel Telemontes from the Behavioral Health Division Director, and Larry Merker, Social Services Program Manager 2, Holly Child, Director of Research and Outcomes, and Daniel Little is also on to answer any questions, as am I. And with that, I will turn it over to these three, and a big shout out to them. We've really come a long way in the past couple of years, in large part to the three of them really putting their minds and hearts together. And I think you'll see that today. So with that,
thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Chavez and Vice President Ellenberg. My name is Alex Villa. I'm a division manager for the probation department. And what we're going to talk to you today about is our 2022 Duly Involved Youth Longitudinal Report. And first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share with you a little about the progress made, the youth, their needs, and the future of the duly involved youth within Santa Clara County. We're very excited about this report, and we're very excited to be sharing with you today. Next slide, please. So the initiative has contributed significantly to Santa Clara County support of and care of duly involved youth in several ways. We've contributed to, we've institutionalized, we've supported systemic evolutions that lead toward improved outcomes for DIY youth. We have a duly involved youth unit that's co-located. We have a designated duly involved youth court calendar, which is collaborative with the juvenile justice and dependency courts. We have joint protocols for dual status reports and a joint report format. We have a full implementation of Local Rule 3, which allows us to share a lot of information that we wouldn't be able to share otherwise. And we also have staffing of our duly involved youth liaison, which is a very helpful and necessary aspect of the work. We have enhanced CFT meetings, child family team meetings, and a process associated with that. We recently finalized a programmatic narrative related to the duly involved youth initiative, which is very exciting. And we have finalized recent logic models and initiative frameworks, which have been shared locally and on a national level. The DIY initiative has resulted in a set of shared values and integrated practices that we're very excited about. These practices and processes support the youth caregivers unit and the staff in the work that they do with these high needs young people that we serve. Next slide, please. So this is our recently completed and finalized initiative framework. And really what I'd like to highlight here is when the initiative kind of started in 2013, very individualized, siloed, different departments working very differently. And then as we make progress towards coordination and cooperation, finally in that last arrow pointing down, we're really integrated, where you have a lot of partnership, we're highly collaborative, and we really do work together on a shared set of values and outcomes and goals that we're operating off of, always in the interest of making a positive impact for youth and families and ultimately systems. Next slide, please. So who are the youth that we're serving? Initially, we had 3 youth, which was very early on, of course, as the initiative got started. we've had a high of 35 in 2018. And most recently, we closed out 30 cases. Of those 30 cases, 10 of those cases identified as male and 10 identified as female. So it's just a brief little snapshot of who the youth are that we're serving. Next slide, please. As in many other systems that we work within, particularly in Santa Clara County, most of the youth that we work with identify as Latinx and male. And the average age, although it may fluctuate somewhat, is between the ages of 15 and 16 years. And that holds relatively true over all of the cohorts in this report. Next slide, please. The top needs of the youth, as you heard me mention previously, a lot of the youth that we work with are high needs. And for us, we use what's called the JACE, the Juvenile Assessment and Intervention System. There's a process that we have to evaluate and assess for service needs. And when those service needs are identified, what we do is we kind of identify a supervision strategy, which helps us kind of provide services to youth in a particular way that addresses their unique needs. And for both female and male youth, the top two needs were emotional factors and family history problems. These results contribute to our understanding of the dynamic and complex needs of dually involved youth. And it is important to note that for females, emotional factors was the top need, and for males, it was family history problems. But for both cohorts, both of those factors were the top 1 and 2 for each cohort. And covering the next couple slides is Rachel Telemontes, so I'll pass it on to her.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Rachel Telemontes with the Behavioral Health Services Department. And part of the process in the dually involved youth unit is to utilize child-family team meetings, as well as the Child Adolescent Needs and Strengths tool, which is known as the CANS, as a way to identify strengths and needs and to support service and care planning. So the figure on this slide represents the top needs for youth in DIY utilizing the CANS tool. And you can see that the most significant needs are reflecting in the legal compliance area, family functioning, living situation, school-related factors, and adjustment to trauma. With regards to behavioral health, with regards to behavioral and emotional needs, we also utilize the CANS with looking at what are the most prominent needs in this area. And as you can see, the most prominent item in youth's behavioral and emotional needs are adjustment to trauma, needs related to impulsivity and hyperactivity, followed by anger control, depression, and conduct needs related to aggressive behavior. The CANS tool is not a diagnostic tool, so it does not diagnose, but it does provide us an opportunity to consider symptoms and behaviors associated with distress related to mental health and substance use symptomology. And another consideration that we look at with the CANS is looking at how traumatic experiences are associated with both behavioral health and physical health symptoms. And as we look at needs, how we're looking at behavior in the context of traumatic events and experiences. One of the very important parts of the CANS tool, but also our child, family, and team meeting, as well as really the overall philosophy of the DIY work, is really making sure that we're identifying strengths. And so we're identifying strengths early on for youth in the DIY unit, and we really consider this as vital for case planning. This supports connecting youth to services, supports healthy development, and also it's important that strengths and needs, they coexist often in the same area. Some of the most prevalent strengths found in the DIY unit are resiliency, family strengths, interpersonal and relationship factors, as well as optimism. And with half of the top 5 strengths involving relationships and connections with significant people in youth's lives, this demonstrates the importance of including identified natural supports and family in their planning and teaming. And I will hand it over to my colleague, Larry.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm assuming you can hear me. I'm Larry Merker, Program Manager with the FCS. This slide basically covers really just the last couple of years. Building positive working relationships and valuing engagement with youth and family is an important component of the work that the unit does. Some youth surveys were done, and in conducting youth surveys, the feedback from the DIY youth showed positive working relationships in terms of communication and accessibility of staff from all three departments. Youth were asked to rate their overall satisfaction with their probation officer, social worker, and youth advocate, and all of them, 100%, felt supported. They agreed or strongly agreed that their probation officer, social worker, and youth advocate, of course, were rated as either great or good, with actually 80% reporting great. During this time of COVID, the last couple of years, we obviously saw an increase in the use of virtual connectivity, and we found that that actually helped enhance working relationships and broadened some communication. Though the youth reported some challenges, such as too much screen time, just as we all have that, or virtual fatigue, none of the youth reported challenges engaging with their probation officer or the worker or the advocate, and even had no difficulties connecting with service providers. Next slide, please. The next two slides are Cwscms-based data. And in this slide shows the earlier stages of the DIY implementation. With smaller numbers in the cohorts, the entry of youth tended to fluctuate a little bit. We do see in the last three cohorts, however, that there's a positive trend towards a lower re-entry rate into dependent care. And some of those factors that might be including this trend probably include the DIY's team's emphasis on building the family's use of natural and community supports to help maintain stability. Potentially, there's a small percentage of youth who are choosing to become non-minor dependents, but what we are seeing is that once youth achieve permanency, the numbers of them returning are very small. Next slide, please. And then this particular indicator shows the average number of placements within 12 months after the DIY program ended, compared to what it was like before the youth started the DIY program. This includes both foster care and non-foster care placements or facilities. Foster care placements being relative homes, resource family homes, or short-term residential therapeutic programs. And examples of a non-foster care facility would be a juvenile hall or medical facility. Similarly to the previous slide, over the last three cohorts, there's a positive trend towards placement stability and fewer placement changes. The averages are small overall, but the trend between the before and the after the DIY program involvement does continue to widen in a positive manner. I think I'm sending it back now to Alex.
Thank you, Larry. So on this slide, what we would really like to highlight is from a high in 2018, there has been a decrease in recidivism from 2019 moving forward and continuing throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Very encouraging to see, and we're excited to report on this. But we wanted to highlight basically the downward trend here. Next slide, please. So moving forward, I'm going to touch briefly on each of these boxes because they each have their own unique point of reference. So DIY since inception, I think really the key here is that we've moved from a very individualized or siloed way of operating into a fully collaborative and integrated way of doing things. The level of integration is extremely high. However, there's probably opportunities to increase that. But overall, from the inception up till now, we've really come a long way, which is very exciting to report. Progress made by the initiative, I shared some of that early on, but really it stems from having a shared vision, values, and absolute commitment to serving duly involved youth within the county, and really integrating our system and our teams at all levels, and making sure that we have good frameworks. Examples are like our logic model and our framework that we utilize that were very recently finalized as well. For unit implementation, the unit is established and it is integrated. The focus right now on the part of the unit is really, since it is multi-department, is really recalibrating to coming back into the office and returning to in-person work. So a lot of what we're doing is figuring out who has what abilities, who has what going on in terms of re-entering the workspace physically and collaborating on the work that we're doing. The last piece of the unit implementation is really memorializing the practices that we have and memorializing those into protocols and ensuring further institutionalization for efficient evaluation. So, and moving on to long-term outcomes for youth. Really what we wanted to highlight here is focusing our data work group on outcomes, specifically complex continuum data collection, sharing, and evaluation, and really including the recidivism, placement stability, and social emotional outcomes in that work moving forward. For the case studies, we wanted to highlight that there are tremendous complexities when it comes to the youth and families that we work with, their circumstances, and that their circumstances are viewed as learning opportunities where needs, gaps, and barriers to overcome are identified. And the unit fully understands that they continue to team on a daily basis as a regular aspect of their work. And when they see items that they identify are high need and complex, that they escalate those items and solutions are sought out to make sure that we get resolution and support in place for those items. A few recommendations for the future. We believe that continued focus on integrated services, policies, particularly related to data sharing, are something to focus on moving into the future. We also think that development of continuum of care options for high needs youth is a focus. Exploration into an integrated multi-agency case management system would be of great assistance, and continued improvement and alignment of data collection and evaluation practices throughout all the different departments as we collaborate and share and try to evaluate and collect data in the different spaces that we're in the different places that data comes from. On a data note, it's not simply DFCS, behavioral health, and probation. The data comes from all different spaces, for example, education and other areas as well. So really bringing that into the fold and making sure that we have a good, robust process for doing that. And this concludes our report. We are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to first see if there's anybody from the public who would like to speak on this item. I see no hands, so I'm going to close the public hearing and go to my colleague. Do you want to start, or would you like me to?
Whatever is your preference.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
Thank you. Thank you all for the report today and the really just impressive final product here of implementing this duly involved youth initiative framework, particularly as our departments, as we've been hearing, have been continuously improving our service delivery to this population. I did want to check some specifics on a couple of things, on 3 things. On page 11 of the report, staff outlined 7 needs that were identified in last year's snapshot report based on feedback from youth staff, stakeholders, and providers. And I'm interested to know systemically how we're addressing these needs in 3 specific areas. The first is, how are we providing additional housing and placement options that are not juvenile hall? Someone in a position to answer that?
Supervisor, this is Daniel Little, DFCS. Okay. I can jump in and give a little bit of that. We have been working on our kind of build out of our continuum of care, which we reported in kind of separate sessions. The one component of that is to ensure that we have placement options for all of our youth, not just for DFCS. So as we continue to build out that continuum, that will address, I think, a component of what you're asking for, which is kind of the alternatives to a juvenile hall for children that are higher needs.
Can you be a little bit more specific? I know we're trying to build it out. I'm interested to know what it looks like. What that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. So we have existing a number of contracts with local foster care agencies to build out kind of higher needs, more of a professional parent model where you have a single, you have a foster parent, licensed foster parent that's able to provide more high need support while getting clinical support from their agency. So the plan is to continue to build those out. We have current contracts in the work with our agencies to kind of double the number of homes that we have available for those. for those youth. Part of this is due to that the short-term residential therapeutic model that the state implemented hasn't necessarily gone the way that the state planned. So we're building out these homes and kind of to counter what we've seen through the SRTP models.
So what's the wait time generally, Dan, between when a youth is identified to need some sort of housing or placement option outside of juvenile hall and when they actually are placed?
And I think supervisor, for specifically for the juvenile hall question, I'll maybe see if somebody from juvenile probation has. I don't have a good answer for that particular question.
Yeah, and I'm happy to jump in. If we're talking about AFD foster care placements versus Ken Care, we have a 2-week review once the youth is ordered into placement, and the goal is to absolutely have them out before that time.
And we do that where you don't find that we are housing kids longer because we don't have another placement outside of juvenile hall?
I think there was a little blip in substance abuse services, but behavioral health rallied quickly and got another provider. I think we had a couple of kids stay a few more days than were optimal. Otherwise, no, they're not languishing in juvenile hall waiting. We
Thanks,
work
Chief.
really upfront on that.
The second area is how are we connecting youth to vocational and training opportunities, as specifically as anyone can tell me?
I'll let a program person answer that one.
I can start, and I can have my colleagues chime in as well. So the unit is actually located at the current hub. And so at the hub, there's a lot of services and referrals that we can take advantage of. And so we actually utilize a lot of that available information there and kind of make those connections live and in the moment. At the hub, there's also OYA, so folks can kind of get involved in school and then extend that out to any vocational options. That primarily is how they kind of operate in terms of making those connections and passing on that info and helping folks get connected.
And again, specifically, do we have regular partners that we know will provide that vocational training opportunities or apprenticeships? How solid are the relationships and our ability to refer and know that there will be slots that will accept these youth?
I think I can't really speak to the solidness of the relationships, but I can say that we have general abilities to make referrals, and we can shore that up moving forward, of course. In terms of vocational education specifically, both departments have an education services unit. Probation has an education services unit, as well as DFCS. They have navigators that do provide services and support, whether it's educationally or otherwise. And so that's where we rely a lot of that work on.
So one of the things, and I would say this is a lesson that Supervisor Chavez has taught me, is to really dig into the distinction between what we are offering and what is actually accepted and taken advantage of. And that distinction is really important, because if we think we're making connections or we're offering options, but they're not the right fits and the youth are not taking them and we don't have follow through, then I'd like to know that information, because maybe it means that we need different partners or different opportunities, or we're not making the right connections. So I'll ask the third, and I see that Judge Clark wants to weigh in. So maybe, Judge, do you want to do that before I ask the third, and then think about how we can get some more regular feedback on this?
Why don't you ask your third question, and then I may weigh in on all three.
Great, perfect. I love that. The third question is, how are we stabilizing and supporting youth that don't qualify for the 24 one-on-one status, but are in both systems of care?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand the question completely.
So if they don't need that 24 7 one-on-one care, what's the kind of the next level down option for them? How are we providing that stabilization and support?
Yeah, so the majority of these youth aren't in custody, and the majority of these youth never come to juvenile hall. So they are maintained and they're stabilized in the community, and I'll use Rachel's terminology, it's staffed to the acuity of the youth. So sometimes it may be 5 times a week and sometimes it may be once a week. We use wrap services that can be 24/7, but they don't have somebody with them 24/7 normally.
Mm-hmm. So I think what I would like, and again, circling back to page 11 of the report and those 7 needs, is for you all to think about and then come back to us with a suggestion of how we can track our success on all of those. How do we, if we're providing housing and placement options, if we say that we're connecting to vocational and training opportunities, if we're doing stabilization, how do we measure? How do you recommend that we measure the success so that, again, if we're not having success and I'm sure there are so many reasons, that we have the opportunity to constructively look at those barriers and see what we might need to do differently to be more useful to youth. But I fear that if we're not measuring it, we're not going to know really how successful we are, except unfortunately through recidivism or negative outcomes. And I'd like us to be a step or two ahead of that. So Judge Clark, do you want to weigh in here? Do you have recommendations or thoughts about that?
Sure, happy to weigh in. If it's okay, I'd like to provide just a brief background and comment on the wonderful presentation from the team, and then drill down into a bit on your questions. Is that acceptable to you and to Supervisor Chavez?
Absolutely. We don't say no to judges.
Thank you. Well, first of all, good afternoon to our supervisors, and thank you to Chief Garnett and our DIY team for their presentation. That was a wonderful summary. I wanted to say that the importance of the DIY program really cannot be underestimated. And I think both supervisors know I've been around a long time here in Santa Clara County, but in my opinion, the DIY program represents probably one of the most dramatic improvements to the juvenile justice system in the last 40 years. I feel very passionate about that, and it's my privilege to oversee that calendar every Wednesday. We've always known that most kids who enter the juvenile justice system have previous contact with the juvenile dependency system. And when I say most, we now know from research that that's about 80% of our juvenile justice kids. And the challenge historically has been, what do you do either with a foster child who commits a crime or a juvenile justice youth who we find has no parent or guardian able to provide appropriate care and control? So we call these traditionally crossover cases. More recently, we call them dual status cases. But they tend to be very complex and require a wide variety of services and interventions. Before the creation of the DIY team, and by the way, I think you may know that the notion of a DIY team was actually first raised about 20 years ago, and it took a good decade to get sort of the momentum going. And then once it got going, we have this amazing program that you've heard about today. But before the creation of the DIY team and protocol, there was this constant battle between the Department of Family and Children's Services and juvenile probation as to who should be responsible for this youth when it appears that they could be both a dependent child of the court and a juvenile ward of the juvenile justice court. And I witnessed that battle firsthand, both as a lawyer for 20 years and then kind of early in my career as a judge. Part of the problem was a turf war, but part of it was that there were challenging funding streams, different applicable laws, a lack of understanding about one another's roles and limitations, misperceptions about available resources, and really the absence of any sort of mechanism by which these two very skilled teams, DFCS and JPD, could work together cooperatively given their restrictions. So with the creation of the DIY team, those traditional barriers have now disappeared, and they've been replaced with this extraordinary collaborative approach to helping these high needs young people and their families. Like I said, I do this calendar every Wednesday morning. I would invite supervisors and actually others who would like to witness the magic of DIY court on Wednesdays. Some of you I may have to give special permission to, but would certainly invite people to participate and see the hard work that goes on. Sometimes the team recommends that the child be served by dependency only. In other words, by DFCS only. Sometimes they recommend, now this child really should be handled by JPD only. And then other times they say, really, this child needs the benefits of both services or both arenas. We call these our dual status kids. Our dual status calendar has kids who may be DIY, who are, or who we've determined not to be at some point. But the team is working carefully with all of those. What I find interesting is that the recommendation of the DIY team is very rarely challenged by the attorneys, and I don't know that it's ever challenged by the judge, and that's because of the quality and depth of the analysis that goes into that joint recommendation. So the end result is that the young person and their family get the best of both worlds. Sometimes they get the expansive family-centered services of DFCS and the compassionate supervision and accountability of JPD. And other times there's an agreement that they should only be in one system. But the end result is really the seamless assessment, the inclusion of the family in the process, and the seamless provision of services. So the end result is, compared to the way it was and the way it is now, it's really a difference between light and day. So I thank you for your support of this incredibly innovative and productive work, and it's gained national recognition. I take no credit for it whatsoever. It's the DIY team and leadership of Judge Kathleen Lucero who really made this, and Judge Shores on the dependency side, who really worked hard over the last 10 years to make this happen. By the way, before I forget, I'm gonna have to have a phone call with Judge Schwartz for stealing Holly Child from us. I'm wondering if I can issue any sort of a protective order that keeps her here longer and helping us out. So, but Holly's been a wonderful, she's a data person and makes it easy for us. So thank you, Holly, for all of your work. In terms of Supervisor Ellenberg's questions, how long does it take to get somebody in juvenile hall into a placement? That's actually an issue. Part of the challenge is we don't have any short-term residential treatment facilities in Santa Clara County. And even when we identify one, the real challenge is state DSS has set up this elaborate process to make it happen. And so I recently learned from our DIY team that from the moment the DIY team says, yes, we think this child's appropriate for placement in an STRTP, it's going to take a minimum of 30 days for all of the administrative process, and they have to get an independent person to verify what the recommendation is. I mean, it's a very long process. So I have had kids sit in juvenile hall for up to 30 days who are ready for a placement, and we're just waiting for all of that process to go. So that continues to be an issue, but it's not because everyone's not cooperating and working hard. It's because as the law continues to evolve around STRTPs, that looks to be a fairly complex process. In terms of how to connect youth to education and vocational opportunities, we've got a number of educational initiatives. We've got outside technical assistance helping on this. We have Lacey and their Project Yay and a number of other organizations designed to try to help the children get back into school. That's really the biggest focus for most of our juvenile justice youth, is how do we get them back connected to their school and move towards graduation. Vocational training is often discussed, but usually that's secondary to trying to help the kids get through school. And these are huge problems. I think, I handled the truancy calendar over the last couple of years. Many of these are the same families, but, the schools face extraordinary challenges. And our juvenile justice youth oftentimes are the reason they face many of those extraordinary challenges because of the challenging behavior, most of which comes from a trauma background. And then in terms of what do we do for kids who don't need the 24/7, the wraparound programs provide this wonderful variable backup system of support that can range anywhere from 6 hours, I think, to 19 hours a week, depending on what they need. So at least from my perspective, coming back into the juvenile justice system after years away, it looks like we have a pretty sophisticated level of servicing that can move up or down depending on the child's needs. So I'll stop there. Thank you for the questions, and thank you again for your interest and support in our DIY program.
Judge, thank you. That was really enlightening and uplifting, truly. What would you recommend, if anything, to be tracking so that we know specifically where we can be doing better? Or do you already know where we can be doing better and it's just a matter of addressing the simple things like changing laws, adding resources?
Well, I think definitely tracking time for placement is big, because we know the date that they've entered juvenile hall, and we know the date they exit. So that's something fairly easy to count. You're kind of tracking where they're exiting to. Is it a back home? Is it into a foster home? Is it to an intensive care foster home? And is it into an enhanced intensive foster care home? Is it into an STRTP or a drug or mental health treatment program? So trying to track that amount of time will help us, I think, as a system better hold ourselves accountable for trying to get the kids out sooner.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And then I'll look the next time that this group comes back with some maybe specific suggestions about tracking, or just an update on the tracking that you're already doing. Thank you all so much. This is really, really exciting, important work. I'm grateful to all of you.
Thank you for those comments, Susan and Judge Clark. And Holly, we all agree that Judge Lucero owes us big for taking you. Just a couple of observations that I wanted to make, and then just a question. My observations are that, one of the things that we know about foster youth is that not only are they at high risk for being incarcerated as adults, but also for becoming homeless. And so as we think about the long-term, the continued longitudinal studies that I hope we're doing, as we are moving forward, one big bucket of interest I have is when a child moves out and they're no longer within the age cohort that this program is addressing, and they become transitional aged youth, the connection between the support they're getting now and becoming those transitional aged youth. And really what I'm asking is, as children leave, as young people leave this program, how do we measure their launch? I don't just mean recidivism, but I mean, because I was sort of struck. It's funny, Susan, when you highlighted the vocational programming, that's what caught my attention too. I was thinking, oh, it's interesting and I don't know if that came from young people because it was an amalgam of a lot of folks' input, but I'd be really interested in knowing, what are they saying? Like what do we need in order to succeed at this juncture?
So luckily, that's something that we do. We survey the youth and do focus groups. And I'm thinking maybe Dr. Childs, you're the best person to answer that.
Sure. We actually do a number of things to garner input from the youth. So we do surveys of youth who participate in the program, and we do ask feedback on, things that have worked for them, things that haven't worked for them, what are some needs that they have. I know that for those youth who have participated in the ranch program, I know that the ranch management team and staff really got a lot of information from youth who were at the ranch about what programs they were interested in. And over the past couple of years, there has been an expansion of educational and vocational programs at the ranch, some pretty exciting things. There are also some more things in the works. We have a great partnership with the Center for Employment Opportunities that youth who are 18 or older, they can work there. They've had great outcomes, great placement. The job retention specialist has been a very successful component of that program. And so I think a lot of those things you're talking about, educational, vocational, have been very on track with the work that has been happening in the DIY unit over the past couple of years. There are plans. It does take a while sometimes to get contracts up and going. There aren't barriers. It's just resources and time. But there are a lot of really wonderful things that have occurred in the past several years and planned for the next 2 to 3 years along that line. So I think you'll continue to see that in the presentations. We'll continue. We can definitely expand on the feedback that we have received from youth, because we do have a lot more information. DIY probably has more data points than any program we evaluate that I can say in the probation department. And then especially you include SSA and you include behavioral health. We have a lot of information. And so we really try to be very specific in what we present so we can highlight kind of the most pressing needs. But there are a lot of things in the works at any given time, and educational vocational is definitely a big focus of the program.
I don't know if you can do this, but off agenda, even just sent to us, I think the board would be really interested in the feedback that we've gotten from children who've been at the ranch or young people who've been at the ranch and this program, even if it's not it doesn't have to be, I'm not looking for a whole new report, but just kind of what you're learning from them. And part of the reason I'm so interested in that is that I'm interested in better understanding the client-centered movement, design movement relative to success. Like, how do we level set what we're experiencing with success? So that's kind of one bucket that I'd be really interested in diving into a little bit more. And I'll give more thought to how about that, but just seeing how ownership, ownership and belonging seem to me to be two just super important ingredients to anything we design. And I feel like you all have been thinking more about that than anyone else. And I'd love to see how that got transferred, from what we're learning to this program. Thank you.
Yeah. I think the one thing too that I don't want to forget is we do have the Youth Advisory Committee that's just at the ranch, and they're very active in reviewing a lot of the things that we're doing, surveys, documents, programs. We receive a lot of really great, deep feedback from those youth, and really thankful for their contributions. And so I do think there's a lot of different venues that we have to really allow for that space and that kind of empowerment and that kind of collaboration together with the youth as part of that design and development. So it's been really successful.
The other thing, Judge Clark, go ahead.
Just to follow up on what Dr. Child mentioned, the two other juvenile judges and I went out to the ranch last Friday to do a tour. And two of the things that really struck me were, one, all the vocational training. The kids are very active in school, and almost all of them end up catching up on credits and graduating or GEDs or things like that. But over and above that, they have implemented so many vocational training opportunities. So I was amazed and delighted at all of the opportunities. The other thing is just the atmosphere and the environment there was really positive. And the Youth Advisory Council that Dr. Child mentioned, we met with the youth chair of the advisory committee. And he said they meet weekly, they make recommendations. The staff that we met with said they value those recommendations greatly because it was really helped in terms of changing sort of the atmosphere, the mindset, and the level of engagement that the youth feel there, because they feel like they have a say in the program and a say in what they're going to receive in terms of services. It was really powerful. So I don't know if Chief Garnett wants to add to that.
No, I just think that we have done a really good job, using we loosely. I think we have done a good job of having the youth be kind of the center, and the Youth Advisory Council through FLY is one way, and then the launch of this at the ranch, this council is just, phenomenal. I'm sure we'll do the same thing in Juvenile Hall with the Secure Track youth, so because they'll be there longer. And yeah, I mean, we're just giving better services because they're really specific feedback. It's not the general, we need more pro-social activities, or we need, we need more mentoring. It's like, we don't like these clothes. We don't like this food. We want to be swimming more. We want to be swimming less. We want more of a vocational. We want, an opportunity for 4-year college. I mean, the sky really is the limit, because these are the most resilient kids ever. I mean, they truly are. They've overcome so much already, and given the right opportunities, they just fly often. So yeah, such a great investment.
I just realized that we have a few more items, so I'll wrap up and follow up directly, Chief, with you. But I did want to just make this observation. One, I want to thank all of you very much for the research and the work, and really for looking after our kids so well. This is really an example of that. I do want to say a very sincere thank you to Dr. Child. I know you're going to go on and continue to do great things. And one of the reasons I'm so excited for you to be at the state, frankly, is that as fast as we're moving here on behalf of kids, there's so many counties where it is the opposite. And so looking forward to you playing a leadership role there. And the other thing I just wanted to acknowledge was Chief Garnett. I will say, I remember being a new supervisor, and this program coming up, and the need, frankly, for us to fund it properly for it to work. And I will say, Chief Garnett, I think you've always been very appropriate and followed the structure overall of the county's rules, but I know that I was very annoying to you about how is this going to come off the ground, and I really pressed you and Dr. Smith for for the resources to make this work. That said, I do just want to say how exciting it is to see probation working so closely with SSA and Dan, your team. I really believe that the only way we're really going to have success for kids is if we, and I think this is true countywide, but success for the people that we're trying to serve is when we really do put them at the center of our work, and that we evaluate and not be afraid to say, well, that was a bad idea. Now we're going to try something new. And what I've really appreciated about your leadership is that there is no blame. It is always about how we get better. And that's just such an important example right now in the world we live in. So thank you, Chief Garnett, and to all of you for your really good work. I think what we should do is just take a motion to receive the report along with the additional requests for information, and look forward to learning more. And Dan, on the expansion of the professionalized foster care, I'm going to be really interested in seeing where we are in that during budget. I'll probably just ask where we are and that you have the resources you need to finish that, because if we don't have the housing, it's not just the wait, the 30 days, it's also the housing itself, and they're really complex services to provide, and so we'll follow up on that during budget. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. See, Dave, we caught on. All right, can we get a roll call vote?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, team. Appreciate you. Thank you, Judge Clark. All right, so now we're going to move to item 12. This is our SART study and process mapping report. And
hi there, Supervisor
Hi.
Chavez.
Hi there.
So we can get started. I'm going to share my screen real quick, I think. Here we go. And I just want to make sure I'm doing that now.
You did. Perfect.
Great. Okay, and I'm going to go quickly here. Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, and Vice Chair Ellenberg, and all of the CSFC committee. Today, we're here to share an update on our work at the SART committee. I'm very grateful that I'm joined today by one of the co-chairs of the SART committee, Kim Walker, who's a nurse manager with Adult Adolescent Safe program. Now, unfortunately, Lindsay Manfield with the YWCA Golden Gate Silicon Valley program, who typically presents with us on these updates, can't be here today. She's taking care of her family and dealing with illness. So we are wishing her well. And we've tried to quickly modify the presentation so that we'll still give the big picture of the SART committee updates to all of you. And at the end, I believe we have Erica Elliott, who will be able to join us if you have any additional questions, because she has worked closely with us on the survivor voice. So we'll get started. I think, here we go. So as a reminder, the SART committee is mandated to do things by the penal code, and its very function is about systems response and to ensure that the essential systems working with survivors, those being the criminal justice, healthcare, and advocacy, along with coordinating and analytical partners, are all at the table to make this a coordinated, multidisciplinary, and victim-centered first response to victims of sexual assault. Our SART is co-chaired by one of the county's 2 rape crisis center service providers and by our sexual assault forensic exam, or SAFE program. The committee itself has over 40 representatives of the, including the Office of the District Attorney, 18 law enforcement agencies, the Crime Lab, both of our rape crisis centers, the SAFE program, and of course the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention. Today we have some brief updates on 2 big initiatives to improve our process study and time mapping efforts, ultimately to improve the services to survivors. And these are our efforts to address data and to bring in the survivor voice. So the database update, we'll go quickly here. As you might have seen in the attachment of the ledge file, this work is complex and there is just so much happening. Our work team meets every few weeks to ensure that this is on track. We entered into contract in mid-October 2021 and are on a 3-year plan, but most exciting is that by October of this year, we will have some data to share from our beta tests. So let's keep going. And let's talk now about the survivor survey. And as you may recall, between January and March of 2021 of this year, we launched an online survey of last year, we launched an online survey in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese with the intention to increase survivor engagement, to gather anonymous feedback from survivors about their experience with the response system, to identify systemic challenges and gaps, and to better understand barriers that survivors face when reporting their assault. We had 112 unique respondents to the survey, and we gave a detailed update of both the process findings and limitations last September. And despite the limitations, key themes emerged from the survivors about their experiences and recommendations on how we can improve our response. Some very clear, like the positive impact of advocates and medical staff to keeping a survivor engaged in the process. Other themes light a path for us to explore, particularly around accountability in the community when one does not want to pursue criminal justice paths. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim now.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Walker. I'm the nurse manager of the Sexual Assault Program for Adult and Adolescent Patients. Just wanted to highlight here that the survey that we did with the survivors affirmed that survivors do have a strong interest in accessing counseling and support services, and that the SAFE program coordinates well with the rape crisis centers to make sure that survivors are in fact connected to advocacy services both during and after exams. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have seen a clear increase in the immediate need for behavioral health services in sexual assault, intimate partner violence, and domestic violence cases. And during this time, we have worked to establish direct links to behavioral health services, especially those that are tied to health services, our medical services. And we do this because we want to facilitate the connections. Can we go back? Oh, thanks. Sorry. That we facilitate the connections to services based on current needs. Because patients come to us and their needs are always unique, and we want to make sure that we can connect them to both short and long-term options that might be directly connected to their medical care. We want to make immediate referrals for the highest risk cases, and we want to ensure linkages so that if their current healthcare providers would be beneficial to link to immediately, we want to make sure that we have access to their healthcare providers as well. Next slide. So overall, taking all of this information into account, we want to talk about the next steps for the SART committee. Next slide. So the survivor survey was also clear that survivors are people going through the process who are most satisfied with the services related to healthcare and advocacy. The SART agencies work collaboratively to expedite survivors through the processes so they can get to services quickly and avoid delays. The SART committee will work to incorporate these processes into the new SART protocol updates. We will also in the SART committee be considering whether or not case reviews would be possible so that we can look at ways to address current process issues, focus on trends that we're seeing in the cases that we have, and then identify barriers to access that need to be escalated, all of which are objectives that are codified for SART committees. We also want to thank you very much and highlight the fact that we are about ready to hire our senior management analyst to support the SART coordination. That is something that came out of the Harvey Rose recommendation from the report last year. And that position is going to be able to help us keep this very large, busy group of dedicated folks on track, support more research, look at the data coming out of the database, and making sure that we can get that to y'all and that we can respond to survivors. Next slide. That is it for us.
Yeah, this is it. So we are available for questions. We want to thank you for this time. And I am not sure if, I can't see if Erica has joined us, but is she, I see Erica Elliott. Here. Oh, great. Okay. So,
hi, Erica. Welcome. We're first going to go to public comment and then we'll come back to the committee.
One moment, please, while we get the timer ready.
Thanks, Dave.
The next speaker is Angela. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, good afternoon. I may be going ahead of Erica, but my name is Angela, and I am a sexual assault survivor. And I wanted to just attend today because I wanted to speak on how beneficial these programs are as a survivor, and bringing us survivors together is very therapeutic and healing to know that we are not alone on our journey. I not only attended the first conference online during COVID last year, I embraced the opportunity to help plan this year's retreat. And it has been a blessing to be able to come together with other survivors and find healing through our sharing. I'm so grateful for our community and all of the programs that we offer to survivors. And we have also been inspired to initiate a group on our own called Peers, which stands for People Educating and Empowering Resilient Survivors. We have a vision to continue to provide a safe space and support survivors on their journey, as well as be able to be an advocate and work alongside of the processes that are in place that were just spoke about as far as in the healthcare setting, and also with collaborating and working with the police department and enabling them to see the victims with a more compassionate pair of eyes, I guess, if that makes sense. It's a difficult journey to go through, and oftentimes many assaults are not even reported because of the fear people like myself have, because you get often judged and put into a box, and it's not a fun box to be in. So having programs that enable us to be a voice and be healing to one another are super beneficial. And I'm truly grateful that I've been able to utilize these programs. Thank you.
Next speaker is Perla Flores. Perla, you have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Perla Flores with Community Solutions. And first, I want to thank you, Angela, for calling and sharing your perspective. It's really important.
We're having a hard time hearing you. Could you speak just a little louder?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. First, I wanted to thank Angela for calling in and sharing your perspective. It's so important. And really, that's kind of the crux of my comments. I'm really excited about all the work that's happening and how we're taking advocacy for survivors to the next level and ensuring that survivors' voices are incorporated into all the different efforts. So really looking forward to, as we develop and enhance system responses and evaluate and recalibrate, making sure that we're creating those spaces to cultivate survivor healing and leadership development. And this can include the retreats, such as Angela was talking about, but also opportunities to incorporate survivors from our communities into these efforts, like promotoras, peer partners. And these are individuals that can also, in addition to the community outreach and prevention efforts, also serve as cultural brokers, as community liaisons, and sometimes as interpreters. So thank you again so much, Supervisor Chavez. I really want to extend our deep appreciation for all that you've done to lift up survivor voices, and thank the SART committee, Kim, everybody that served on that committee. And also thank you, Carla, and the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention to surfacing these important issues. And we look forward to working closely with you to continue to develop survivor leaders. Thank you.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to us for a moment. First of all, I wanted to say also to Angela, thank you so much for sharing your truth with us. And just, I'm always so blown away by just folks who not only address the issue, what's come so hard on them, but to give back to others and be thinking about peers is just like amazing. And Perla, you're always thanking everybody, even though you do all the work. So there you go. And you're amazing. So just to go back, I wanted to say I really appreciated having the report. The reason I wanted it on the agenda today, even though I thought the report was very clear, is I want to just emphasize that I'm very interested in us making sure that we're really continuing to make sure that we're not just including survivors, but as the reports come back in October, that we continue to integrate in new thoughts and new ideas. And anyway, and that was it. And I know this is the beginning of that. And I'm excited that you're going to get into that hiring process. I'm sure that's going to help, really, really help quite a lot. Erica, is there anything else you want to add since you've joined us today?
I just think it's important, I know we have done so much great work as a county, and really opening up lots of spaces and addressing a lot of gaps that have been happening within systems for a long time. And I just want to remind, or just lift up, I think for Lindsay and I, when we met and talked, and for the YWCA and ourselves, is just to make sure that survivors stay in the centered. You know, sometimes as we move into systems, you know, not all of our survivors walk into systems, not all of our survivors utilize these systems. And, you know, as part of the START committee and other things like that, we're one piece of a large puzzle. So I think just making sure that we continue to focus and create spaces and systems that don't require people to engage in systems to have to receive services or receive support. That we can also think about creating programs and services that can support folks in the community through healing and other kind of alternative things that not only do they have to seek through traditional sources, but also think of them holistically. Like Angela said, like looking at survivors through that lens of like a lot of that work around shame and removing those shames and stigmas are coming through them connecting and working together. You know, part of it is getting justice, but part of it, and whatever that justice may look like, it doesn't always have to be people going to jail. It could also look like different alternatives. So exploring that more and investing in exploring the alternatives and investing in survivors through leadership development, through help them create peers, to give them, to creating roles for them within trainings or other spaces that they can utilize and have. So focusing on our commitment to them. If we're going to create and ask people to become leaders, we have to then create spaces for them to be leaders in. So I think just making sure that we challenge ourselves to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I just think we need to challenge ourselves to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the root of the reason we're doing this work. That's exactly what you said. Now, I think you raise an interesting point, which is, you know, it's one is that I think we have to figure out a way to talk to people who aren't in any of our systems now. That'll be the next phase. But for right now, you know, we want to make sure we have really a robust tools to make sure we're communicating better with the people that we're serving now. I think the next phase is going to be talking to people who aren't in any of our systems, not in nonprofits, not in, you know, really, you know, like I think we're going to have to think about faith institutions and other places that we're going to need to do more communication and outreach. So I always appreciate you getting me to the next page, even, you know, so which I seriously, Erica, thank you for that vision. Susan, do you have any questions on this item?
I don't. Thank you very much for the report.
Yeah, I'll look forward to the October report out, and with you know, and I'm happy, Carla and Kim and Erica and team to do a connect in just to better refine what that looks like. But I do really appreciate we're going in this direction. And you know, one thing I'll just say, and the other reason I wanted to pull this off is that, you know, we're going to go into budget season for ourselves, but also for the state. And the state has still not invested at an appropriate level in the service. And I for one, would like us to have a deeper conversation when we talk about our legislative strategies in the future. Supervisor Ellenberg, you know, the role you play in CSAC is so critical, but no buts, period. And what I'd love to do is see us take a more aggressive stance on making sure we're fully funding the rape crisis centers, because right now we're doing that locally. And what I'd love to see is us be able to take our money out and put it into the rest of the system if the state would put in their resources. So just something that I want to put on our to-do list in the next year.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, thanks all, but I don't have any other comments or feedback. What I will say is we don't need to take an action because we're not giving any direction, but really appreciate you all being with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now we're going to, Chief Garnett, is there anything you wanted to share on a report out?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask and not doing it well at all. Yeah, and unfortunately, we have 2 youth in juvenile hall that are COVID positive. The first time in a long time. Had a new admit yesterday, and then a youth that came in last week. Both are asymptomatic and getting good medical care. But I wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to Bob.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Just a couple quick updates to share. with you. We learned just recently that the public health emergency as it relates to some of the public assistance programs, that deadline got extended out. So we're anticipating that we might have to begin our work redetermining Medi-Cal benefits in July, but it looks like that's going to get pushed out to October. So that's good news in terms of people's extended benefits for medical services. And a few additions to the budget have come up as part of the May revise. So as we mentioned a couple months ago, there was pretty significant increases in terms of our programming kind of across the board. And we're happy to report that there's a few more as part of the May revise. So in the CalWorks program, there's a grant increase that the May revise has added. So it'll be 11% increase in the maximum aid payment levels. And we expect that to be effective in October. So that was definitely some good news. And that's to build upon some increases that have happened over the past couple of years too. So at long last, the benefit levels are at least catching up when they had been not long neglected in the past. On the IHSS side, there was an addition there in that program around a permanent backup provider system. So this is to address challenges that may have been in place and incurred when a caregiver might have been unavailable due to an emergency or something like that. So there's about $34 million in funding made available to start to create this backup systems to help with the continuity of the care. And then on the children's side, for child welfare, there were two additions there totaling about $200 million, and one was for family finding and engagement grants. So there'll be $150 million in grant funding available for that. So that'll help us enhance some of the work that we're setting out on right now. And $50 million for caregiver grants, so that will help us in the timeliness of approval for caregiver applications and things like that. So it's assistance for that level. So those are a couple adds to some of the programs to what was already a pretty good budget year for our programs. And we're looking forward for the budget getting settled, and then we'll start moving ahead with drawing down some of this funding for these activities. And other than that, that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Well, thank you so much. I did have one question, and that is, could you talk a little bit about whether or not we've seen an impact on the formula shortage for our clients? And if so, what's being done to address that?
Sure. So we haven't heard anything really super directly on that, because it's just not an area where we typically engage in terms of kind of the WIC program and where folks usually turn for that activity. So we know that folks are struggling with it. I can't say that we're hearing direct feedback and requests for assistance, but our staff have put together a resource guide in order to refer folks, have the information at their fingertips to refer folks to First Five and to the WIC programs that have a better connection to the pipeline of formula and such.
One thing I'm going to ask our staff to do is to be prepared for the board meeting that we have to know what we are doing. And I'll just say through, I don't see anybody from the county council's office still with us. So I'll ask my office to reach out to county council just to alert them that I'd like Susan, you and I to, from this committee to just ask it on, a week from Tuesday to better understand what we're doing relative to baby formula. And one thing I'll share is that I did reach out and will formally ask county council to let us know whether or not, because this appears to be a supply chain issue, whether or not the current state of emergency gives us any opportunity to address this more assertively in the Santa Clara County, countywide. So I'm looking forward to getting something from them as well. That's all that I have today. Rob, did you want to respond to that?
No, but I've taken note with respect to what your request is for administration for next Tuesday, as well as what your ask is of County Counsel's office. And it's probably best to make sure that two folks are addressing an issue within our office instead of hoping that one remembers. So I'm happy to follow up and make sure that we're looking at the declaration of emergency and the impact it may have on the formula access.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And then we'll turn then to Ignacio for our Department of Child Support Services. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I just have one brief update to give, and it's related to the state budget. As Bob mentioned, the governor's May revise, which came out about 2 weeks ago, unfortunately did not have any additional funding for the child support program, at least not anything different from than the January budget. So we're currently holding about 16 vacant positions, a majority of which are child support officers. If we don't see any change to the final budget that the state adopts, we'll do a process to review which positions will be deleted. Those positions are all vacant. The good news is we don't anticipate any layoffs as part of that process. But obviously there are some impacts related to the reduction of staffing, especially among caseworkers or child support officers, since they are our core position. We're hopeful that between now and the time that the final state budget is adopted, there may be some additional funding made available. I have been in discussion with the State Department of Child Support Services. Some of the counties who are getting additional funding may not be using all of the funding in the upcoming year for FY23. So we're definitely in line to have some one-time funding. We've been able to make use of one-time funding in the current year, primarily for overtime and hiring extra help. So it's not ideal. It's not a permanent solution for staffing, but it's definitely a Band-Aid. And so we'll continue to work on a solution as we get the final details on the state budget. But I just wanted to report out on that and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. Susan, did you have any questions? All right. Thank you. And seeing none, we're going to adjourn our meeting, and I will see you in a couple of Thursdays from now. Thank you all.
Recording stopped.